excited to have you at another masterclass at Miva. Today is very exciting because we have a seasoned HR professional in our midst. I'm going to read through his introduction, but please, before I do that, help me welcome Babajide Tella. All right, so Baba is a seasoned HR professional with over a decade of experience in strategic human resources, leadership development, coaching, and organizational design. Currently, he serves as a global HR business partner at Meta, where he plays a pivotal role in supporting the global business marketing group. He's recognized for driving strategic level impact, offering thought leadership in large and distributed organizational environments, and fostering a culture of collaboration and innovation. Before joining Meta, Baba worked at Bank of America in London, where he supported corporate banking, investment banking, capital markets, and wholesale credit divisions. His diverse experience across multiple industries has helped him with a unique perspective on managing complex organizational dynamics and navigating the challenges of cross-cultural environments. Baba is originally from Nigeria and moved to England over 10 years ago, and now he's transitioning to the United States. He graduated from the University of Ilorin. Okay. That was in the middle of a sentence, but okay. He graduated from the University of Ilorin with a degree in chemical engineering, which has provided him with a strong analytical and problem-solving foundation that he leverages in his HR practices. He's also an ISEC alumnus. Outside of work, Baba is passionate about mentoring and coaching, the future of money, and spending time with his daughters. He has a long-standing enthusiasm for dance, a passion that dates back to his days as a break dancer. Baba is married and a proud father of 2 beautiful daughters. He's an advocate for healthy work-life dynamics in the fast-paced world of global business. Please help me welcome again, Baba. My name is Anyekeme Omo. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Miva Open University and your host for today's masterclass. And the theme for this masterclass is campus to career. We really want this to be an engaging conversation. So even though I have questions here, Baba is going to use the whiteboard. He has some things that he's going to show us. Folks joining us online, please feel free to ask questions and jump in at any point during the conversation. Same with the people who are here in person. So with that being said, we'll get started, Baba, with a quick icebreaker. Okay, so icebreaker, what's one skill or experience that back when you were on campus, you thought would be useful in your career, but it's actually not relevant now?
So I thought about this one, and I'm like, which one exactly? Because it's supposed to be an icebreaker, so I'll try not to be serious. I'll try to keep it fun. So at university, I remember very, very well when it comes to spelling of your name, they tell us that your last name has to come first, and it has to be in capital letter. And then you put a comma, and then you write your supposed first name, and then your last name. It's just irrelevant. Like, you know, and I remember that we get scores back then. I mean, we have some interesting lecturers, right? You know, that if you don't spell your name correctly, if you don't write your name in that format, you know, they probably deduct some marks from you. And in my mind, it was good for the time for the scores, but it's practically irrelevant. That's one. I studied chemical engineering at university. I think I spent a lot of time trying to understand chemical formulas, you know, these chemical compound formulas, and the structures and all of those things. Because I don't practice chemical engineering, I don't do anything relating to chemistry today, right? It was a good skills learned back then, but completely irrelevant to me now, right? I guess my point is there were some really cool technical engineering things that I learned, right? That fast forward post-university, I don't even leverage them anymore. So, but I think the Tella part is the one that I found very interesting, like the way you spell your name, the capital letter. And then you realize that no way, that's your last name. It should come last. It shouldn't come first. It's a very, very important skill set, because then I remember that the reason why a lot of people call me by my last name throughout my days in secondary school and university is because that's always the first name on my.
So they thought it was your first name.
I mean, I think everyone. We oftentimes call ourselves by our last name.
That's
you know,
true.
and
Yeah.
in most Nigerian universities. I mean, in my own case. So I think that was just an interesting one that is completely irrelevant. No one really cares about you writing your last name first. By the way, it's wrong.
Right. Yeah, I can relate to the chemical engineering thing. I studied chemical engineering in undergrad, but you have made the journey, you know, from chemical engineering, a little bit of breakdancing to human resources.
Yeah.
So how does someone make such a transition?
I think, so let me clarify something about this whole breakdancing. It's a long time ago, right? And I probably don't know how to breakdance anymore. Breakdancing, but the key thing for me when it comes to breakdancing was I didn't know how to dance, right? And I wanted to learn how to dance. So I joined a dance group. So this is the thing about me when it comes to learning too as well, right? I don't need to know how to do anything. I just need to be interested in wanting to learn how to do something. And then I did the breakdance for like 3 years, just before university. I did really well. I was doing all of the stunts, with your neck down, your hands up, and everything, like doing all of the street dancing. You know, I did that, and it was fun. But today I still dance. I really enjoy vibing to good music. I think it's a really good one. I tell myself each time I go to a lounge or clubbing, and I say to myself, I'm not going to dance today, I'm just going to watch. But no, before you know, I stand up and I start dancing. But even as a even studying chemical engineering too as well, I think that in itself was was an interesting journey, right? You know, I did that at University of Illinois. But I think one of the key things that, I think one of the biggest moments for me during my days at university was joining ISEC. I'm not sure how many people online or in the room have heard about the organization called ISEC. So it's a global youth-run organization that provides a platform for young people to explore and develop their potential. It's as simple as that. And during my time in that organization, I volunteered a lot, right? So I did a lot of stuff around project management, talent management, did recruiting, business development, sales, I led teams, and none of those things were chemical engineering related, right? But there was just so much energy and interest that I just got from, I think this is very fun. I think second year, third year uni, I realized I don't want to be an engineer, right? I don't want to study chemical engineering. I don't want to practice as an engineer rather, right? So I gave it my best. And I volunteered and grabbed as many experiences as I could. And then I remember, and I think this is a key turning point, when Bank of America came to Nigeria for the very first time a couple of years ago, over 10 years now. When they came to Nigeria to do their campus recruitment, right? And then it was like, oh, we need to tell you about a company. Like, it's basically doing a career fair, but they probably call it corporate event. But it's a campus recruitment event, basically. And then that was how it started, right? There's a lot more story to that, but I applied for the internship program, right? And then I got a call after the selection process to offer me the job. And then I started off as an HR intern at Bank of America. And then I was there. After my internship, I got a year. The following year, I got an offer to come back for a 1-year program. And then 2 months into that 1-year program, it got converted to full-time. So I started off as an HR graduate with the company just a year after my internship with them. And it's been a journey so far. I think it's been a very beautiful one. And I've kind of I've dipped my toes in different part of HR. HR is a very gigantic, what's it called, the division, right? It really depends on what part, you are in. But I think I found my energy, my strengths, my passion, in being an HR business partner, which is a very, very strategic side of HR, human resources, basically. So does that help with the transition?
Yes.
But there's a lot of, breakdancing about, even joining ISEC or doing all of those volunteering was still me not knowing anything about those things and wanting to learn. I think I've just always had that, I've always had that intentionality to wanting to learn new things. And I like it when I don't know things. It challenges me a lot.
It's a really good attitude to have. And I hope that that's something that, folks who are here take away. So to get into the meat of this conversation, the theme being campus to career, we really want to help equip our students with tools that can help them with the entire end-to-end process, thinking about making that transition from being students at Miva Open University to being in careers that are fulfilling for them, right? So let's start with recruitment. Many graduates often need help landing a job after graduation, and it's no news that many graduates present unemployable skill sets. So we want to help allay the fears of our students in this conversation so that they feel more confident in building the necessary skills, landing interviews, and facing challenges in the recruitment process in general. And it also benefits our budding entrepreneurs. So can you walk us through what a typical graduate recruitment process is like? From campus outreach, sort of that campus fair that you even mentioned, to job offers. Maybe you can highlight key stages and tips for success at each point.
All right. I'll go into that in a second, but let me make an illustration on this borderline transition, because I think those are very key, especially for those online. This is the pen. Oh. So, I just write on board. Yes. So, I was saying to you guys about how, I started off from the breakdancing side of things, which I'm gonna add to this. I mean, what I want to just show everyone on the screen is more around just the journey. And I think it's always good when you have like some, some visuals, some visuals to it, right? And I'm gonna put something like this, and then this. So you think about me in terms of like, where I kind of started here, like the secondary school guy, right? Sorry, my handwriting is so bad. I'm gonna try and make it quick. So it's
that's the eraser. Hey, first one.
Alright, I think I should do a crash course of this before I start. Alright, so secondary school, right? So before that, I did a breakdance. I know you like the breakdance story, so I had to add it. So I did a breakdance thing, right? But there was something I kind of I just want to emphasize more on here. The reason I did this was because I didn't know how to do it, right? So let's establish that fact. It's something that's very proud of me. And then I went to study chemical engineering. But during my day studying chemical engineering was when I joined this ISEC organization that I joined. And I intentionally added this onto it because, again, ISEC is not present in law school, so not everyone will have the part of ISEC. But I think what is key is the volunteering piece that I mentioned earlier, right? Volunteering to learning new things, to be able to, to acquire new skills. They could be on-profit, they could be informal, and sometimes they're formal, right? In this category, I could also add internship, right, into it, because I think it's another important aspect. And I say it's an important aspect because sometimes, you're studying chemical engineering, you don't want to, I mean, this is graduation, right? You don't want to practice as an engineer, right? But you also need to then figure out, okay, now I've identified the kind of things that I want, right? So what gets me closer to that? Internship is a good way for doing that because there's a lot of internship program that allows for you to come by just with your 0 years of experience, right? As long as you're willing to learn, right? And then it goes on to other volunteering opportunities, right? And then of course, that kind of landed me in my HR, career that I am today. So I just thought I would put this on just so you know that, there's really no one direction to how you get to where you need to get to. Oftentimes is you're pivoting, but still not taking your eyes off this goal of graduation. Right? I made a lot of mistakes during my days of university where even when I was pursuing all of this, right, I kind of like took my eyes off this goal, but this goal continues to be so, so important. This goal of graduation with good grades, right, open doors for you, right? But this skill set kind of keeps you there, right? It keeps you in the door that is already open. And the same thing is applicable to entrepreneurs too as well, right? You know, you start on a particular path, but you need to remain flexible to pivot, like into other things and trying new things. Does that help?
Yes.
All right, perfect. And then your other question was about, you know, a typical graduate program, right?
Yeah.
So one thing to call out is, so let me be clear. I've only ever worked for an American company, right? And American companies' approach sometimes can be different from a Nigerian company approach or from a British company approach, right? So just want to be very clear. But some things are oftentimes general. So I'm going to keep it as generic as possible and as relatable as possible to as well for people, right? And it is not for you to take away and say, well, this is the hardcore step. Again, flexibility is always very key. Knowing that you need to pivot in terms of some of your thinking and your approach is always very key. So I just want to call that out, right? But what is usually typical of a graduate program would be that you will have companies go through what they probably call a campus fair, a campus outreach, right? And campus outreach, so I'm going to make sure my handwriting is beautiful this time around. Hopefully it is. Right? So you have campus outreach as like the starting point. Or what you probably love, which is career fair. Some people refer to it as career fair too as well, right? Right? And this is where organizations go onto campuses, right? To sell themselves, to say we are the best employer, you should come and work for us, right? But the only organizations that do that are organizations that are very particular and intentional about talent. There's so many talents on the street today, right? But there's also so many companies out there. Not all companies are intentional about talents. They just want people to come and join. Some people just want to do more than just delivery. And I say to people all the time, when you're applying to a job, right? You want the job, but they also want you. So it's a two-way street. And if it ever becomes one-sided, right? Just know that you're not on the winning side. Because it has to be both. You need to join them to help contribute to their measure of success, to help them succeed as a company. The same way they need to employ you, to pay you, to give you a fruitful, fulfilling career, right? So it means as they're asking you questions, you also have questions to ask. Anyways, that's why it's important that companies go into campuses, right? To run campus events, to run career fairs. And there are companies abroad that come to Nigeria to do that every year, right? And there are companies in Nigeria that do exactly that too as well, right? Again, you need to know, search, ask questions for you to know where these things are happening. And there are also times when universities, right, have ongoing relationship with top employers, right? Meaning that those top employers can also come on campus, right, to run a career fair or a campus outreach. So this is usually the first stage. Some companies will have the application open at this stage. Some will probably have the application open after this career fair. So you have what they refer to as the application stage. By the way, all companies want you to come to them. Again, I'm talking about companies that are intentional about talent. They're intentional about their talent pipeline. I'm not talking about, because I understand the reality in some cases too as well, right? Right? And by the way, the reason why this is also relevant, forget this is Nigeria, maybe some of these things are not applicable. People are getting jobs from Nigeria everywhere around the world. So don't limit yourself to the bounds of this country. It doesn't make sense. The world is a global village. You go on Instagram today, and then you see what is happening in other parts of the world. It's exactly the same way you can see and tap into opportunities, in the other part of the world, right? My point is make yourself a global citizen when it comes to opportunities, right? The worst you ever get is a no, is a rejection, right? But you need to keep it in your track. So application stage is always very, very key, right? This is where, they launch out the application, they provide a lot of details, and you need to fill that. And oftentimes you complete the application stage, and sometimes some people invite you over for assessment. Now this assessment, it's a two-way street. Two-way street in the sense that sometimes it's online assessments that you need to do, right, before you go before they shortlist and then invite you for a physical on-site interview. So oftentimes companies will make it online. And the way this thing works now, you probably do like some behavioral tests, some judgmental tests, cultural fit tests, right? And sometimes they will even get you to do video presentation, right? Where they will interview you virtually. You won't see who's interviewed, you just hear the questions, and then you respond. So they probably give like 2 minutes to respond to those things. So it varies from company to company. So it really depends on what exactly their own approach is. But this is usually very typical, right? So let's keep this assessment. Remember I said it's a two-way street. So let's assume that, let's break it down into what the two could be. So one is the online one, right, which is where you do all of those things. And then what happens is if you're successful here, right, you get invited to the in-person, which they often refer to as on-site assessment, right? I think Deloitte does a lot of that, for example. Like that's one of the big fours. I think a lot of the big four companies run online assessment, and then you go into the on-site assessment too as well, right? And then you go into on-site. This is a very tricky one, and I'll tell you why. Because they know that someone could have helped you with this, right? So they get you to probably answer similar questions on site too as well. So there's no way you'd have cheated their system. So if someone helped you with the other one, there's no way you're cheating them on this one. And sometimes they will have this /interview, so in-person interview too as well. Remember I said sometimes it's video interview online, right? But oftentimes when they invite you to assessment center or the assessment day, some people call it, you do the online, and then you do technical interview too as well on the day. And often those technical skills are probably just testing you around. I think there are questions around skills and all of those things, and I'll come to that in a second as well. But they will usually just ask you key questions. They will test you on your interest, your motivation for wanting to join their company, your interest in the area that you've applied to, right? And also to test your competencies in person, right? If you're successful with this, and by the way, this is after shot. Some people will fail this one, by the way. Some people will pass, so it's for the shortlist, right? So depending on your performance in here, sometimes this could also involve case study when you're working in a team, right? So in most companies, the collaboration, teamwork is very, very key. So the ones that test you on these things too as well. And we do that every day, right? In our coursework in school, our research work in school, we work together in a team. So this is also another opportunity to get tested actually for the future and for the real place of work. And then if you're successful here, right, you go into job offer. Right? Congratulations. Now you got a job. This is brilliant. And sometimes some companies run their graduate program after they will expect that you graduated from school before you apply, right? Some will say that the application is open to people in their penultimate year at university. So if you're studying a 4-year course, right, you're in your 3rd year to apply for a graduate program that will start after graduation the following year. So that once you're done with school, you go in for, you start as a graduate. Now this is Nigeria, so it might be different in Nigeria because of the NYSE requirements, right? So some will probably say you must have the NYSE in place before you can start, right? Which means that sometimes graduate opportunities in Nigeria, right, might mean that you are done with your NYSE before you can actually start, right? But if it's a global company, oftentimes, the NYSE requirements they're not tied to that, especially if you will not be employed yet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Am I making sense?
Yes.
Is it clear? My wife tells me that I'm too fast sometimes when I talk. So when I'm too fast, just tell me to. All right, good. So, and then you get the job offer, basically, right? And then boom, right? If you're in your penultimate year, that means you know that I cannot focus 100% on my schoolwork, do my research, now I'm done, and then I know there's a job waiting for me, right? Or, oh yeah, I'm just going to be done with my NYSE, and I know I don't have to stress about applying to jobs, right? And then And then after the job offer, we have what we call the day one, which is the start date basically. And this is just my own style of saying day one because I think it's a very, very important day for people. But between this period and your day one, there's a lot of things that they call onboarding, background checks. This means that they'll do a background check on you to say that everything you said in your CV, and then we're going to get to a question on CV, is true, right? They want to check for any criminal related record, you know, depending on the industry you're applying to, right? You know, if you've been bankrupt before, you know, that might limit the kind of opportunities you go for, right? Again, depending on the industry, it's not applicable in all industry, right? So there are a number of, you know, criminal cases before. Usually, again, companies are intentional about talent. Don't just jump into conclusion even if they find something that they're not convinced about. They come to you to still ask you for clarification. It's when you're unable to provide the clarification and then becomes an issue. Right. If you're applying to jobs internationally, let's bear in mind that oftentimes we have some experience in Nigeria where the companies we work for are not necessarily, that we do our internship or our work experience, are not necessarily structured, but you get good quality experiences from those, right? And they probably don't even have a professional email address, like a business email address. So when these guys are doing background checks, they'll probably say to you that I need a business email address. They won't accept Gmail from you. So that can be tricky depending on the company, again, depending on the country, because again, there are country requirements for all of these things, which is why some countries will be very, very, you know, rigid, where some will be like, you know, it's fine. But because you don't know which is which, right? And the reason I say that is I've seen people actually, you know, lose out on an offer because they couldn't provide a business email address to help verify the experience they've had. Now, this is a graduate program. These are internship programs. You can, in case if you ever find yourself in that type of situation, I just encourage people to mark those experience section for those things as volunteering experience. They really don't hear about background checks from those companies because they're volunteering experience, right? And this is me just bearing in mind that, you know, there are informal economy and formal economy in this country, right? And you getting the balance right of those is always very, very key. All right, does that make sense in terms of, you know, how you could potentially categorize, you know, that particular experience in itself, right? So that way your day one is settled and it's confirmed, right? And there's so much more that happens after day one. But this, I hope this illustration just kind of help to bring some of these things to life, right? In terms of, you know, what some of these processes could look like. But bear in mind, some will follow a different process. So this is very much generic, very much standard, and companies are intentional. There are a lot of intentional companies in this country, and so there are a lot of intentional companies around the world. So, you know, I think in the time and age that we're in now, you want companies that actually offer you a good experience and cares about you as well. Does that help?
Yeah, I think this was very detailed. Thank you so much. At this point, I would even open it up if people have questions that are specific to this that you just illustrated. Do we have any online or in person? No.
No.
All right.
Well, I have a question. Should I stand up?
Yes, please. And project.
Thank you for this detailed explanation of how the job process works. You said earlier that that you had an internship offer. You got that internship first of all. Then after the internship, you are offered a 1-year program. Then 2 months into that 1-year program, you are offered a full-time job. Was there any skills or traits that made it happen like that? That gave you that opportunity? That made the company see that, oh, we need to have this guy.
Absolutely.
That's a fantastic question, and I would actually add on to that because it ties with the next question I had, which is, you know, in addition to that, or maybe in answering that, can you share like 5 soft skills that students should be trying to cultivate now that are important for entry-level roles?
Yeah, it's a really good question. What's your name? Oluwasegun. Thank you for that. Yeah. So just so I know that you're following me. So again, break dance was something I did, right? Well, I've said that already. But what did I say was one of the key thing about me when it comes to, opportunities, when it comes to my, I don't want you to talk, someone else to talk. I want a lady to talk as well. Lady. No? Okay, I'll give you the mic.
You said you are open for new opportunities and improvements.
Yeah, learning new things, basically. Exactly. I say to my boss every time I work, I say to her, I said, just give me something new. Like, I say to her, pull me somewhere. It doesn't matter if I know how to do it or not. I will figure it out. That is a very, very important attitude, right? Not the one that said, this is my job. You've told me in the job description, I do A, B, C, and anything outside of A, B, C, I'm no longer interested. In some places, yes, maybe that's good, right? But you need to bear in mind, and I'll go to the transferable skills check for everyone as well in a bit, right? But you need to bear in mind that everyone, we are all paid, if it's our job, right, not our business, we all paid to give what? 100%. You and I are paid to give 100% of whatever job. That's exactly what they've hired you to do. What sets you apart from the other person that sits next to you, that offers you the opportunity that's first stay here, is you giving plus 100%. My wife is saying all the time, she's like, it's 150% or nothing. Like, that's the starting point. That is the starting point. 100% is never enough because that's what everyone does, right? So it means that, you need to be willing to learn new things, to explore new things, to ask the right questions, to raise your hand up for things, to volunteer. I didn't just go to university just to do university, right? I needed to do more than university, right? So it's not just about those things. And some people say to you that, oh no, I can juggle many things together at the same time. I'm like, you will if either you like it or not, right? You're gonna graduate, you're gonna start working, you're probably gonna say you want to start your own family. Right? So you have to deal with your immediate family, your in-laws, your own parents, work, right? If you're religious, your religious organization, right? If you're part of a charity, your charity, literally life will throw multiple things at you at the same time. And trust me, we all have the bandwidth to do more. But then again, I said something in my biography the other time that I'm very much interested in work-life, like healthy work-life dynamic, right? That's also very, very key, and I can share what all of that is about later on, right? But it's just very, very key for you to, when you need to give more than 100% to move on. All right? Now, I'll go to the question of what are the key skills, like the transferable skills that are very, very important. The fundamental, like I said, is willingness to learn, right? Yeah. Willingness to learn. I don't know it, I don't care, but I know that I want to learn it and I know I can do it. However, there are some other really key things. So one is communication skills. And this, we're talking oral and written. Actually, I'll change that to verbal. Oh, sorry.
Eraser. Yeah. You're good.
See, I'm learning
That's
fast
a pen.
now, right?
Pen.
Oh, pen. Where is that? Okay, this one. I just selected that. So this is verbal and written. How you say the things you say, how you introduce yourself, how you stay clear, concise in your responses, right? How you try to avoid beating around the bush, how you avoid filler words. Do you know what I mean by filler words? Yeah, correct. Yeah. Right. By the way, I still continue to learn on those. I do it sometimes too as well. But your communication skill is super, super important when it comes to, how you're positioned in a workplace. It's not just with the American company, it is with any company. It's applicable in school too as well, right? The folks that are very good verbally and written, you will always know for sure, right? The other one that I said that I have written here is teamwork. Or you call it collaboration, wherever that is. This is super important, right? You know, because in all organizations, there, you know, if you're employed to a company, it means that you're employed, meaning that it's not just you. Either you're working with the one-man person, or you're working with a bigger team. It's important for you to be good at teamwork, right? And that's basically you collaborating with other people to achieve a common goal, right? Some people are very much siloed and opinionated and like, this is it and nothing else. And they're not flexible or open to listening to other people's ideas, other people's thoughts, and see how they can amalgamate those thoughts and bring everything together to form a unique approach or a unique solution, right, to achieving success, regardless of what that success looks like, right? And in most companies, collaboration is key. I have cross-functional partners that I work with every single day, right? I've got a legal team in place, right? I have employee relations business partners, you know, that I work with. I have guys in my finance department that I work with. I have guys in recruitment that I work with, right? I cannot do those things by myself. So it's important for me to be able to work in those teams for me to be able to deliver for the business. Does that make sense? Yeah. Right? Very clear. And by the way, you do this all, I think I mentioned that earlier, in your project work in school, research work in school. All of those things are evidence of good teamwork. So when you go for those interviews, right, and they ask you those questions, tell me about a time when you worked in a team. Refer to those times when you worked together, when you worked on a project together with other folks, right? Tell me about it, you know, they will probably not ask you any question about your communication skills directly. They'll probably ask you a question to test your communication abilities, right? So it means that when they ask you, tell me about a time when you worked on a team before, the way you respond to that question, they're also measuring or testing your communication skills alongside, right? Yeah. And then the third one that I have here is problem solving. So problem solving is another important element. Remember, I said earlier, I do not necessarily need to know stuff, right? But I want to do it. There's a difference between the person that comes to me. I'll give you a good illustration. So I'd say to you, what's the channel? Okay, I was going to ask for his name. What's your name? Godwin, right. So let's say I ask Godwin and, hello?
Goodness.
What's your name? Goodness, right? Say I ask Godwin and Goodness, right, to go downstairs and get me 5 oranges, right? And they both go downstairs to get me the 5 oranges, to go look for the 5 oranges so they can bring those for me. And Goodness comes back to say, oh, Baba, there are no 5 oranges downstairs. I was only able to get 2 oranges, and that's because 3 are actually very bad. And sorry, this is the situation. And Goodness goes downstairs to say, oh, exactly the same situation that Godwin has experienced. And came back upstairs to say, hey, Baba, you know, there were only 2 good oranges, 3 are bad. However, being a key point, right? However, right, I was able to check in with ABC to see if there are other alternatives that we could tap into, right? Or even potentially place an order. And I started researching to look at companies or other marketplaces or other vendor that could give me those 3 oranges. So I thought I would just check in with you to see if that's something you want me to go ahead with or not. There's a difference in how the 2 of them has come back to me with the same situation. It's basically, you know, the status of the situation that they found themselves downstairs, right? But the way they've delivered those means that Goodness has been able to demonstrate a problem-solving skill, because yes, I want 5 oranges, so I don't have 5 oranges, that's a problem, right? So she's been able to say these are other solutions, but then again, she hasn't just jumped in to make those, now I'll come to proactiveness in a bit, But in this context, she hasn't jumped in to place those others. What she's done, she's come back to me with alternative options and checking with me to say, do you want me to do that or not? Right? So she hasn't just come to me with problems, she's come to me with solutions, and I have to choose. And I might just say, you know what, it's fine, I'll make do with two. Or after, oh, that's great, which one do you think is more viable? You know what, actually, let's just go ahead and do this. Right? So I'm going to see the two of them completely differently in this context of problem solving all the time. Right? And problem solving doesn't necessarily have to be, it's more, so basically, it's more of the things that you've done to help improve that situation. It doesn't have to be the correct thing. Because sometimes it won't be the correct thing. And that's why you're checking in. And I'll just be like, oh goodness, man, you know what? Those online websites, don't even go there. They're all scams. Right? Or, that vendor, we only have 2 left. One of them is already off sick because I tried calling this morning too as well. Right? So basically, it doesn't mean that she's correct with 100% on the solution she's offered, but she's offered something. And that's how you also learn early on in your career. And you will continue to apply that until the end of time. Right? Sometimes problem solving is you asking the right question. Right? I've been in meetings where I don't have an idea what the topic is. Like, I don't even know anything about the so-called topic. Right? But how do I get there? You know, I need to ask questions. Help me understand this. What exactly are you looking for? What kind of oranges are you looking for? What happens if you don't find this? Have you been in this type of situation before where you couldn't get all of the oranges that you were looking for? What did you do? Do you have a preferred way of searching for oranges outside of going downstairs? Right? Those probing questions at the early stage could also mean that someone like goodness, right, could take action immediately once you found that there's a problem of not having those 5 oranges. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You don't need to learn this thing you don't need 10 years experience or 20 years experience to know this thing. It's everyday living. Yeah. All right?
It's good.
The 4th thing I have here is attention to detail. How do you pay attention to details at work, right? How do you pay attention to details in school? Think about it. I mean, I'm assuming, but let me speak for myself. I've been in situations where I write exams, right? And then it's all this mathematical calculation. And then at the end of the day, I would think I've gotten to the answer. And then the result will come, they'll tell me that I go with 0. And I'm like, oh my God, it's just this thing, right? I could have paid more attention to going through those things over and over again, ask the right question to see if I'm actually doing the right thing or not, right? And it's fine for you to say you do not understand certain things when you do not understand certain things. You just need to ask questions. And when you ask questions, you don't just ask questions vaguely. If you tell me you don't understand, what is it that you do not understand? Not that I don't understand. Yeah, I've said 500 things. So which one exactly? Are you not clear on? Right? Attention to detail is also in your manager or your senior folks at work, or getting certain direction, and they're kind of giving you like ABC to F, right? And then you miss out on D, or you miss out on the E part, which is the critical part of it. Right? So attention to detail is always very, very key. And how do you get there? It's you, again, not spending so much time going through things over and over and over and over and over again. It's not for you to get to the point of absolute perfection, right? But perfection is good, but nobody's perfect, right? But it's a process of you getting to a place of, okay, you know what, I've definitely reviewed this line by line. I'm confident that it kind of maps back to the things that have been asked to deliver on. All right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Attention to details. You don't need to have 500 years experience to do that. You do that in business all the time too as well. You do that in school all the time too as well. So those are very important skills that are transferable to the workplace. And then I have what I call analytical skills. Who thinks being analytical is being good with mathematics and data? Who thinks so? Show of hands. All right. I love that. It's true, but it's also not true, right? It's true because oftentimes people provide you with data that you need to work with, you need to analyze it, you need to, help get to a reasonable point of to explain and describe what the situation is and what the data is telling you about it. And being able to provide it in a very simple way that is easy for people, your audience, to understand. Right? You can be analytical in how you approach problem. So as well. Goodness in that example that I gave about the 5 oranges, 2 good, 3 bad, right? There was an analytical situation to it, so as well, right? Being analytical is saying, this is the problem I'm trying to solve, right? These are the potential situation, but this is what this problem is saying right now about this situation, right? Based on this problem, these are the potential solutions that we could potentially explore. For each of these solutions, there are pros and cons to it too as well, right? Not as say when I tell you that of the 500 people that live in Magodo, right, 20% of them, are married, right? It's not just about the numbers, it's also around how you map out situations, right? That gets people to the point of clarity and get people to the point of making informed decisions.
So being analytical is breaking down problems.
It's basically, right? And in some cases, you can use data to break down situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an app, for example, you're building an app, for example, right? Your customer feedback, right? The amount of time people spend on your platform, right? The features that people engage with the most, right? All of those things are data that can also help you make informed decisions, right? My point is being analytical is not only just about data, right? It's about how you solve a problem, right? The approach is step by step to how you solve a problem and the resources around you that you leverage to solving that problem and making an informed decision. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like what role emotional intelligence play this. For example, you mentioned about Godwin and goodness, because there could have been emotional intelligence in that point.
Yeah.
Is it something that's important?
It is very important, right? But the reason why I wouldn't put it on as a key one is because there are personalities, right? And there are medical situations that might mean some people do not have emotional intelligence, right? Someone who is on the spectrum, for example, right? Someone who's got ADHD or autistic, for example, might lack certain social skills, for example, right? But it's not to say they don't have skills that are transferable, but it's an important element, right, in certain jobs, right? If you're just always on your computer, and all you're dealing with is crunching numbers, maybe you probably don't need some skills, but it's important. So I don't want us to take away from that emotional intelligence is important. But in terms of what could be applicable to everybody, regardless of what field or what path, is communication. Again, verbal or written. If you're writing codes, you need to make sure you're clear, right? Teamwork. You need to work with other people. You need to, if you're an engineer, for example, you need to work with your product guys. You need to work with your teammate that's building just that one part of that feature, right? If you work in marketing, you need to work with your sales team. You need to work with other your marketing insights people, like to kind of make all those informed decisions. Problem solving, attention to detail, and analytical. So those are key, but there's so many other skills that are very, very important. I know I talk a lot, so you probably need to kind of shut me up sometimes. So.
Is that the go ahead? No, this was really detailed and I think very helpful, the question that was asked. So thank you for that. I think now we can transition into the CV resume question. So I know that you have some mock resumes for us here. If you can use one of them as an example, can you really demonstrate how our students can tailor their resume for specific entry-level roles and any other positions?
Yeah. So let me start by asking everyone one question for the folks online too as well. Who believe, I said this to you the other day.
What?
Who believe in having a CV template? All right. I'm only seeing one answer. Okay, 2. You believe in that too? All right. And we believe that there are CV templates that are applicable to specific countries. So, for example, say I go to Australia, right? I want to make sure my CV look the way the Australian people write their CV, just so I can get the job. We believe that as well.
Yes.
All right, I like that. Now, that is true. However, the dude you're like sitting right in front of you, do not believe in it. And I don't believe in templates of CVs because I've seen what oftentimes people refer to as rubbish CV get good jobs. But one thing is standard, and I think not one thing, there are a number of things that are very, very important when it comes to writing your CV. Number one, don't lie. Number two, be clear. Right? 3, your grammatical errors. Make sure that you're clearing all of those things, in good time. Your consistency to as well is very key. So now that I'm gonna write this. Sorry, by the way, I got this from SEO London program template. So this is not my template, but it's a good example to use for you guys, right? So say for example, this name is FireXO Naeem. I don't even know if that person exists, right? But let's say my font type for this is Calibri, right? We all know Calibri, right? And then it gets to me writing stuff here, right? And I'm using Times Square Roman, Times New Roman, right? Or then I keep going on, right? And say I'm writing this experience, I'm describing my experiences. I put full stop here, and then I get here to describe the other one. I just didn't put the full stop. Those are the kind of things I check out for. So when people send me CVs, I'm just like, you need to clear these things up first, right? Consistency is key. So if I'm using Times Square, Time New Roman, TNR, let's call it TNR for the purpose of this side of it. So if you're using TNR, right, it needs to be TNR Ultra. There is no such thing as, in my opinion, right? Some people will disagree, some HR professionals will disagree. I'm not a recruiter, so some recruiters might disagree too as well, right? But I did recruiting at some point for like 2 years on top of my work as an HR business partner when I was at Bank of America. So when I say I've seen some CVs, and I've seen CVs that people refer that this is perfect CV, not getting a job. So those things are like the fundamentals that you need to get right first. Right? That is the starting point. Clear communication. So how do I describe my experience? So I worked as a retail assistant at Primark, for example. Primark is a shopping, is a what's it called?
High street
Fashion shop, right? How do I describe my experience? How do I make sure that it's relatable, it's relevant to the job that I'm applying for, and how do I ensure that it can speak that language? But at the same time, I'll come to you in a second, right? But at the same time, making sure that it doesn't go outside of the window of what you actually did. So remember, I said, do not lie. Some people tell you that, I walked to this place and then I want to see this somewhere where they talk about, okay, maybe it's not that, right? So maybe you worked as a sales assistant, for example. You are not the one bringing in the clients. You're just assisting on the operational side, for example, right? But you then go on and say you increase their sales target, or you make their sales target by 500%. That is you lying, right? Even though that's a quantifiable way of describing the experience, right? It is a lie. Or you don't speak French, but you say you speak French and you write basic. And then you get the job and they put you in front of a French client and you cannot speak bonjour. I mean, that's the only thing I know, in French. Right? Do you get what I mean? Like, you do not lie, right? Consistency, those are like the starting points. And then you start to go into the part of templates. So in Nigeria, for example, some companies will say you need to put your date of birth on your CV because if you're 26 and below, you cannot apply to certain jobs. Some companies, by the way, that's age discrimination. But Nigeria is not ready for that conversation yet, right? That is age discrimination. But I know some companies say if you're 26 years and below and above, you cannot apply to certain jobs. So in that case, you need to then put your date of birth into the description. Some will say we're looking for females only, but that's gender discrimination, right? But again, that's because those are areas where some templates come into play. In some countries, for example, in the Middle East, your picture has to be on your CV because they post pictures on CV. Again, I disagree with that because that causes a lot of bias. So like, oh, she's fair. I don't like fair people. Okay, I'll only go for the dark person that's applied to this job. Those are unconscious bias. But again, I'm using those as an example because I don't want to go away from that. I don't want to deviate from the reality of the country that we live in and the reality of some places that we might be applying to jobs in. HR language is the same regardless of wherever you are in the world. Just make sure you don't lie about your experience. Did you get it? Like what you're learning at Miva University today is exactly the same model that some folks are learning if they go to, you know, I don't know, Lincoln University in England, right? The model will be the same. The delivery might differ, the workspace might differ, but it's still the same model, right? So that means we still have a universal language for how we describe our experience. What is important is that we're describing it in a very, very clear, concise, and quantifiable way. So looking at this person's CV, for example, Fayex or Naeem, perfect, by the way. This person did not start with Naeem, the capital letter, right? And then write the comment. Remember what I said about my last name, Tella, back in university, right? But again, maybe it's a thing for some jobs in this country. It's important that you also read the instruction. Yeah, this is another part. So when some companies roll out jobs, job openings, they include there to say, these are the instructions you need to follow. Please follow those instructions, right? There's a general, there are things that I believe in and things I don't believe in, like the elements I mentioned as discrimination earlier, right? But if I'm interested in applying to a company, right, and if I highlighted those things as key instructions, right, then I have to make a call to say, am I willing to embrace that or not? If I choose to embrace it, then I need to abide by it, because those are the instructions, or else I will not be shortlisted, right? So, all of that, home address. So this CV, write this person's home address. It's great, but I encourage you to take it out. We live in a cyber world where people do all sorts of things with your data, right? People can impersonate anybody, anywhere, anytime, right? So I just say, say for example, I live in Abuja, I live in Wuse 2, I'll just say address Wuse 2, Abuja. If you're not going to give me the job because I don't write my full home address, I'd rather protect myself, and give you a job, right? Of course, your phone number and your email address, right? So your phone number is again, depending on where you are, most companies will probably reach out to you on email first. Some will probably call you first before they do that and say, oh, so we'll try to get through to you. So it's very much up to you in terms of how much of the data are you willing to share, because again, you don't know how far your data is going to go. You don't know where it's going to go. Right? And then all of the other elements that I mentioned earlier, your personal biodata, if it is required. Right? So that's where the template piece comes into play. Past picture, if it is required, again, depending on the country, right? Because some things are just norm in some countries. And then this is a very important part as well. So when it comes to templates, right? Some templates will tell you that education first, then work experience. Some template tells you that work experience first, then education. I'm like, I make the decision of what comes first, depending on what I'm trying to pitch. So, I studied chemical engineering. I want to apply for an HR graduate job. I'm not putting my education first. Right? I'm putting my work experience, my volunteering experience first. Right? First impression counts. So before they get to the bottom, they've already seen what I'm able, what I've done, that is relevant to the job that they're hiring for, right? And then you include it. So let that inform what comes first, not template that someone has said to you is what you need to use. Again, templates I haven't said are bad. However, I'm saying I don't agree with it because a lot of these things you've just got to be very strategic about it. Now, having said that about the flow, I'll come to this education side. Now, with education, you can see that this stuff, again, it's a graduate job. It's an entry-level job, right? For somewhere that you don't have experience in before. So it's important for you to also call out some of your achievements in scope. If you have a 2, 2, and below, do not include it. Personally.
Yeah.
Right? If you have 2, 1, first class, be proud of that and add that to your CV. It's absolutely important. Well, you also don't want people to make quick final decision by just saying, oh, this one is a 2-2 person or a class person or something. Does that make sense? Right? In your university experience, so you can also include your final year projects, right? Or your research. Now, those things are very, very key because it comes with certain skill sets for you to be able to successfully deliver on a research or school project. You would have run survey in some cases, you would have done some interviews in some cases, you have to write a report in some cases. All of these things are transferable skills that you just need to learn how things are done in those companies. Like they will say, Babajide and company's way of writing something, right? But the fundamental that you need in how to write those things, right, could be demonstrated through your research, your final year research project. Very, very important, very relevant. Then sixth form, I think is good if you have really good grades, right? Tell me if I still have time so I can.
You can put it.
Okay. So your your use is good. Again, this is great because you're applying to a graduate job, an entry level role, which typically means that you probably don't have like too many years of experience or even zero experience. So all of these things that you achieved over the years, so you want to make sure you continue to show those things too as well, right? They're very, very key, right? And as time goes on, maybe you don't need it anymore, right? In my early days, I used to include my WAEC result, my GCE, my WAEC, NECO result, and all of those things. Now, I don't even write my secondary school or my primary school. I just write my university degree and any other certifications that I've done, right? So all of those things will come with time. So you want to make sure that you include that. And then, yeah, if there are other achievements that you've done while we're in school, so you want to make sure you include those things. These are very good things that sells you the right way to people. And oftentimes, the people that come from the campus outreach, they're looking for people who can do all of these things, like who have all of these skill sets. Not necessarily people that have years of experience, because the graduate program, they will teach you. And then you go into your work experience, right? Again, if it's a formal work experience, you call it work experience or your internship experience, whatever you want to call it. If it's one that you know that when it comes to getting references might be very, very difficult. Depending on the country you're applying to, you might want to refer to it as a volunteering experience. So your work experience will come first and your volunteering experience could come next. If it is in Nigeria, I don't think we have that tough, rigid, reference background checking. They will probably still accept a Gmail reference, I'm assuming, right? If you think that is the case, you could still call that experience work experience. Or you could just even call that section work/volunteering experience. Very much up to you. Again, my point about there's really no template is very much about what is your reality. It's going to help inform those things. And then interest, achievements, all of these things come hand in hand. You've done things when you're in school, you represented your university or your school, you got scholarship and all of those things. Skills, very, very key to us. You can see how this person has kind of written their own skills too. Reference available on request. Some people write references and then you have 2-3 people, professors, vice chancellors of schools and all of this, or even people that you've worked with. You just need to make sure that you are clear on what exactly is being requested for. Some companies will say include 2 references, include it in your CV if that's the ask. If they're not asking for it, just read reference available on request. All right? Make sense?
All right, great, thank you. I know we have a question online on this, so we'll jump to that.
Yeah, and I think, what's your name? Sorry. Peter asked a question. I want to ask her, but let's go online first.
Okay, let's go online.
This is from Daniel, Computer Science. His question is, how does one without previous experience or skill get a job? I'm asking because I'm currently on a hunt for a company that will take me for Cyrus placement. He's a student here and they do Cyrus here as well. So meanwhile, I don't have much to offer other than my desire to learn. How do I get them to give me a chance?
The truth is, if it's like the Cyrus or CWS that you're referring to, it's similar to an internship program, right? They're not expecting you to have a work experience. If a company is saying that you need to have 2 years of experience for an internship program, just forget about the company. That's not a good. It doesn't match what you're looking for, right? So, what's his name? David?
Daniel.
Daniel. Daniel, just go online and search for internship opportunities, right? That require 0 years of experience, right? And LinkedIn is another place to go to, right? You can reach out to people on LinkedIn and say, hey, I know that you head up this department, or I know that you have this company. I'm at a point, in my university studies where, you know, I need to have a 6 months, you know, service experience, you know, and I think will be valuable for me and your team to join as an intern. I'm hoping that, you know, if there's an opportunity, I'll be able to do that. Depending on what you're willing to do too as well, especially if companies do not have budget for internship, it's a question of, you know, do I really need to get paid or do I not get paid? By the way, to be super clear, I do not agree with not paying people. I think stipend, you don't have to pay salary, but stipends are important, right? If you're a student and you have to travel from mainland to island in Lagos to work where I don't pay you, I think it's just so much of me to ask of you, right? Or maybe you're working from home. Then if you're working from home, let me try and provide with maybe a basic internet facility, for example, assuming you have your laptop, right? And maybe that's all I just want to cover, right? So it's still a win-win, but also understand that this is the stage that we are in our company where we cannot afford to even pay stipend, and that's understandable, right? It's milking everything and still expecting 100%. So I think you need to ask, you know, search online, Daniel, search online for where the opportunities are available. The internet is a very powerful, powerful place, right? You will be surprised what you find. There's so many platforms. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool. I don't work for LinkedIn, so I'm not advertising for them, but I believe strongly in LinkedIn, right? So it's a very powerful place that you can also leverage. Either reaching out to people, setting notifications for internship opportunities, right? Some of these internship opportunities are remote. You don't need to travel. You can work for a company in Port Harcourt and you live in Abuja. So you work, it's exactly like what Miva does today, where your studies, you know, you don't necessarily have to come to Abuja to come and be in class or in person, right? Same way, there's so many companies that will be willing to do that. And there's so many tech startups today that are so savvy, they're very up to speed around this future of, you know, like these ways of working where they know it doesn't have to be in person. Truth be told, they probably don't even have money for an office yet, right? So, so it makes sense, you know, for everybody to work remotely. With your laptop, you know, you might be able to do so many things. And the same is applicable not just in computer science, applicable to so many other job opportunities. But bear in mind, Daniel, and for everyone, when you reach out to people on LinkedIn, they might never reply you.
Yeah.
But don't give up. So send to as many people as possible, right? But there's also a way of writing things. You don't write long story. I get bored in this on the second paragraph when people reach out to me and stuff. I just move on.
Go to the point.
Yeah. So you want to go to the point where exactly it is that you're looking for, and then I can make the call within the first 10 seconds. It's something I think I can do or not do, and to decide I want to reach out to you. Some people, even if when you're very clear and concise, they will still not reply you. That's fine. Right? You know, just keep trying.
I actually even want to add into that because I think I would say to Daniel, don't also discount the being in person, like going physically to a place and dropping your CV there or trying to speak to someone in person. A lot of people are very responsive when they meet you face to face. So if you're really keen and you're really looking, I know when I was younger, that's something I would just walk into an office and be like, you should hire me. Yeah. And it worked. So you can try that.
And you'll be surprised, you'll be surprised when people share that story, you'll be very surprised, you know, what some of these things are. Okay. Another one, right, is this. I believe, so I'm the type of guy that I want something, I go for it, I give it my best, but I also understand I might never get it. But I try so much to get it. But when I don't get it, I create my own opportunity. And I'm trying to get you that door and that door is not opening, and I keep trying for that door to open and it's not opening. I find a way to create my own door in that corner. And I've done that before, and I'll continue to do that until the end of time. A typical example, when I was in ISEC, right? You know, I was VP project, so I was leading the project team when I was in ISEC at University of Illinois. But I wanted to break into talent management because I wanted to have talent management experience. But I wasn't part of the talent management team, right? And I was trying, it wasn't necessarily going the direction I was going. It was like I've become this project guy that everybody knows and it's all about project. I need to change the narrative, right? And then what I did was, I just reached out to a couple of people and offered them what I could potentially do for them, right? And volunteered again. Right, to do it. It's not as simple as that, but that's an example. Another recent example was during my time at Bank of America, there was a time I was frustrated about my role, about my career path as an HR person. I Like, I'm tired of being an HR person. I don't want to even do this anymore. Blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I really want to go into tech. I really want to go into product management. I really want to go into this. And then I tried so hard to get into the treasury banking organization at Bank of America at the time, which is they're very big on payments, right? And they have like their own app and all of those things. I interviewed, I got to the finance stage, and then we found someone who already had the background and experience. You just come from HR, but I got to the finance anyways. And then what I did was, you're not going to give me that experience, fine. And then I started my own payments company, right? I was still working, right? But I was doing that on the side. I learned everything I learned about product management and all of those things by just reading online and talking to people, right? And then I hired a software engineer. I had a guy who's very seasoned in managing products and programs, right? I had what was it again? Yeah, no. Then by the way, this guy, when I say hired, right? I was just providing basic stuff, right? Because I didn't have money. I was just an employee, just like they worked as well. But there was a vision and a mission, right, in place that I got them to tap into. But these guys are already experts in some of their fields. I need to leverage them to also get the experience I needed and the knowledge I needed to prep me for that path that I'm interested in, right? Luckily enough, Bank of America Meta came to the fold in the middle of it, right? And then I found my renewed, love and passion for human resources, So my point is, sometimes you try to break into something, it's not working, create it. It's difficult to create, but you can.
All right, you said Peter had a question?
Peter. Okay. Yes, sir. My name is Peter from the Economics Department.
Economics?
Yeah. Before you talked about perfect CV, I was like, let me understand, is there something like perfect CV? And also, when you were talking about being analytical, so can you tell us more and like the concept of analytical or like the analytical tools that you can make the job?
Okay. So I'll start with the first one, which is perfect CV. I don't believe in perfect CV. I don't think there's this is the perfect CV and you should run away with it to use it to describe, to write your own CV. CV should be driven based on what is required, what the job is, and those basic rules I mentioned earlier: consistency, grammatical error, clarity, concise in how you describe your experiences, quantify your experience so that it's relatable, speak the language of the industry or the the space that you're looking to break into, that you're applying to, right? Do research in those companies to kind of see what some of those keywords are, right? And there's a reason why all of this is also very important, because bear in mind, recruiters oftentimes are not experts, right, in software engineering. So I keep using I need to use another career. Recruiters are not experts in policy, right? So you say it's a policy advisor role. But recruiters spend enough time with the hiring managers, right, to understand what they're looking for. But the way the recruiter will describe what the hiring manager is looking for might be different from what the hiring manager will see when they look at those CVs. So meaning that you need to appeal to your recruiter, because that's going to be the first person that will make a decision if your CV should be shortlisted or not. So it's important that you speak the language that is industry known, organizationally known, right, to describe some of those things. Again, not to use big English, right? Again, clarity and being concise is very key. The other question about analytics, you talked about tools. I'm assuming you're referring to like data. So I said earlier, maybe you were not in the room, that being analytical is not just only driven by the data. Data analysis is one thing, right? And you can be very analytical with the use of data. But what is important is, how you approach a problem, right? And data can be one thing that you can use to approach a problem or to understand the problem, right? But it's not always the case that you use data to do that, right? And I gave example about oranges and all of those things earlier, right? So being analytical is very much around how you approach a problem in different ways. And that you can use data, you can use non-data stuff. Now in terms of tools, there's so many tools out there, right? I don't have a specific one in my head except for the simple one, Excel. All right, except for the simple one, which is Excel, right? That I know people use, but there's Tableau, there's Salesforce, all of those things. So I would suggest that you just check on the internet to see what data tools are available online. Okay? All right.
All right, great. We're coming close to the end of this masterclass. So I have a question here, and then I'll open it up again for the audience, and then we'll go to the closing, and we can kind of wrap up. So you've talked a little bit about how we live in a global world, a connected world. Our students should be looking outside of Nigeria. There's opportunities everywhere. But there are cultural differences and nuances that you need to lean into in order to leverage and take advantage of opportunities that are outside of our borders. One that we kind of had a chat about previously that's really important, and I would love for you to speak to it, is this concept of self-promotion. So it's a big cultural difference for success in Nigeria versus overseas. Can you share some more about that and maybe specific things that our students should know about self-promotion?
Yeah, I'll come to self-promotion. Culture shock, my first time in England. I remember I went in the summer was in July or something, so it was middle of summer. And then it was 10 p.m., it was 9 p.m. and there was still sun. I'm like, why is the sun not going down? It's 9 p.m., what's going on? And then that was a big shock for me, right? Now, this is just me talking about, like culture shock from one country to the other. So the same way it's applicable naturally is also the same way it's applicable even in terms of what we take into the workplace, right? So self-promotion is a very, very important thing. So self-promotion, who knows what self-promotion is? Let me just ask. Peter.
Self-promotion has to do with projecting yourself and projecting your talents and for what you can afford to do.
I love that. Who agrees with me that in some contexts that's you boasting? Okay, what's your name, Trevor? What's your name? Check. You know you. Kabiru. Kobiru. Yes. All right. So you believe that that's you being boastful, right? Like, okay, why can't you be humble? Right. I agree. Right. However, it is also not. Because at the end of the day, everything boils down to the way you say the things you say. The things you say is key. It's important, right, for your boss's boss, leadership, people that are decision makers, to know what you're capable of and what you're able to do. So which means that the way you say those things then become even super important more than ever before. So regardless of the culture, regardless of who is listening to you say those things, they don't think you're being boastful, because you can be boastful about it. So I'll give a typical example. So when I started off at Bank of America, because of the graduate program, there was like a rotation. So my second rotation was in the recruiting organization, and then I remember walking through an entire recruiting process from start to finish to the point of offering a job. And bearing in mind that involved negotiation too as well before you get the person to then sign, return their contract, like stamped. Now we've got someone who has accepted the job. Bear in mind that I also spoke with the hiring manager at the beginning of the process to understand what they're looking for, blah, blah, blah. I aligned on a sourcing strategy of identifying places to go to get the right talent to apply for those jobs. Some of them direct contact, direct reach out to people and all of that. When I finished that process, bear in mind I was just still a graduate. When I finished that entire process and I got the person signed and returned the offer, I was excited, and I carried down my excitement, right, to the email head of recruiting at the time. I'm like, hey D, good day today. I'm super excited. I can't believe I literally just walked through my first recruitment process, my first recruitment cycle from start to finish. Like from the point of spending time with the hiring manager to understand what the requirements were, to sourcing for the right candidate, to the point of negotiating with the candidate and getting them to sign. That was just a beautiful and massive learning experience for me. Right? I'm so much proud of myself and the things I've learned. And you know what? I'm looking forward to more and more of this. In that process of having that conversation with her, I've established a number of things. One is now she knows that I can complete the recruitment process. So she had better known that when it's time for her to, to put a team together for something, right? She's got a graduate who is also capable of doing something, right? I also haven't just pitched myself to her from the angle of success, right? But more from the angle of the things that I've learned in the process of executing and going through that complete cycle, right? So the way you pitch things to people is what determines if people see you as being boastful or if people see you as, oh wow, that is great. And they can ask you a question, tell me more about what you learned from that, right? And then we start to go into the details of those things. It's different from me coming to you to say, oh, wow, I just finished my, I just completed my sex, almost signed the offer, like it was great, I was talking to the person here and there, like, that could come across as being boastful. In all honesty, I'm not going to think you're serious in that regards. So it's more of the things that you compile together in the delivery of that information to the person that matters, right? That determines if you're doing self-promotion the right way or not. Because it's important for this people to know and understand what exactly you're able to do, what you've achieved so far. So when they get into round table, we're talking about performance and promotion, right? There are reference points for them too as well, because they have really tangible examples and they know what to go to get additional inputs to help measure, your ability in those areas too as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that can differ from country to country, right? It can also differ from company to company in Nigeria. Some companies are very much globally, savvy. Is savvy the right word? Like some companies are very much globally inclined, right? And some are very much local. So you also need to understand the reality of the company that you're in to make the determination of the approach you need to put in. But if you're applying to jobs outside, especially if it's an American company, they can be very good people, but you need to self-promote yourself. And the same thing applies in most cultures over in the West.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, great. Thank you. I wonder if we have any questions online or in person. Yes.
So I was downstairs, I was trying to ask a question, but I want to ask, in Nigerian climate, we have who feel that the only way to get jobs through nepotism and favoritism. How do you encourage students to keep on applying keep on going to see people applying for jobs?
The first step is managing your own expectation as an individual. Number one, and I'll explain what that means. And number two is knowing fully well that what's the worst answer anyone is ever going to give me when I go for things. It's a no. I've received so many no's in my life, right, that I do not give up. Right. So for me, to your point, right, is one, understanding that, managing my expectation in the sense that I'm going to apply to as many jobs as possible, but there's a high chance that 95% of that might come back to me as no. And I will give something to explain that hopefully that can inspire you to know that sometimes it's not even by your CV. But two, also knowing that yes, in some places where you need to know someone because again, the company is founded on nepotism and favoritism, which is a complete bad culture. But it also means that with those type of companies, even if you get into those type of companies, you might not succeed, you might not progress, especially if you don't know people there. Because everyone that progresses are based on who knows who, right? Not based on merit. So in the first place, do you even want to go there, right? Now I understand that sometimes we're left in one corner, like we're some pressed against the wall and we don't have a choice, but we do have choices, right? Three, apply to as many jobs as possible, and I'll tell you why very quickly. Oh, sorry, can I go to the? Oh, did I do this? Oh, back. Oh, you see? All right, so I'm going to be very quick because of time as well, right?
Yeah.
So this is what usually happens. So this is the recruiter. Let's call this person her, right? Recruiter has just spent time with your hiring manager, right? Let's call it HM. About a job that they want to open. And let's say they're opening 3 jobs, right? And this recruiter, job 1, job 2, job 3. Now, I'm talking about companies that are not founded in nepotism and favoritism now. I'm talking about how sometimes rejection could be a thing that demotivates me from wanting to apply. But me saying that, continue to apply anyways. I'll get there now. Right? Job 1, job 2, job 3. Is the job that they're recruiting. That this recruiter is recruiting for. Right? For each of those jobs, it's like 1,000 people apply to that job. That's 3,000 CVs. If you're a recruiter, do you think you will review all of the 3,000 CVs? So, what that means is that, again, for easy calculation, by the way, I'm not saying this is what recruiters do, right? But I'm saying typically, oftentimes, this happens, right? So let's say this 1,000 jobs, right? As a recruiter, because people have used the right language, consistency, okay, CV looks great, I think it's appealing to the eye, and they do 20% for each of these CVs. So that means of each of the application, only 200 CVs are shortlisted by the recruiter. That's the first stage. That's the first stage shortlist, right? That means that you have 800, 2,400 people whose CV has not been looked at. Of these 200, the recruiter then shortlists, send it to this guy on this side, right? And say, hiring manager, these are the CVs for the 3 different jobs that I'm recruiting for you. And this person review those CVs and be like, okay, you know what, all of this CV, I'm only going to shortlist, say another 10%. Right? So that means that 10% of this 200 is 20, 20, 20. So that means that you have 180 people here, 180 people here, who has not been shortlisted by the hiring manager, though their profile has been reviewed, right? And of this 180 plus the 800, that's 980, right? So that means that only these 20 people, right, are going back to this recruiter, and this recruiter is inviting these 20 people to the next stage of the interview process. That means that the 980 people here, 980 here, 980 here, will receive an automatic notification that says, unfortunately, you've not been successful because we found other candidates that have the right skill set, blah, blah, blah. 800 of this 980, nobody opened your profile. Is it what you're giving up on something that nobody has made this? Like, literally, nobody has seen it. And then people start running and saying, oh, maybe my CV is not good enough. Maybe I need to use this. I need to write it this way for me to get to where I need to get to and all of those things. Right? I'll share this with you to let you know that sometimes CVs are probably not even being seen in the entire process. Some companies have automated process and all of those things. Right? But it also means that it filters a lot, that those automated process are very rigid. That very filters a lot of CVs even down the line. Where some people, the CV might be great, but unfortunately, based on the filter, is even out of the way. Right? Now, what do you do to get, because the most important thing is your CV being shortlisted at first. So what do you do to get to the point of 200? Right? It means that it's a numbers game. It's a first come, first serve game. You don't just apply to jobs when the job has been on the market for 30 days, 60 days. Trust me, thousands of people have applied even in day 1. So that means that you need to apply as soon as possible. And it is a lot of work, but you need to dedicate, you need to carve out time into applying for jobs. It could take months, and sometimes it takes weeks. Right? So that means that for you to be able to get onto this 200 list, you want to make sure that, again, apply to as many as possible. Apply as many as possible. Right? What's it called? Apply as soon as possible. First come, first serve. FCFS. First come, first serve. Meaning that you're applying to those jobs as soon as they hit the market. Now, how do you know when the job hits the market? You set notifications. Notifications on LinkedIn. Notifications on the company's career website. Right? Where you're setting notification for specific type of job, so that when those companies post those jobs on their website, the day they post the job, you're receiving notification about it, and then you're applying for that job. Right? You can set up your notification on LinkedIn in such a way that, right, that every time that kind of job profile that you're applying for becomes available, you get notified on a daily basis or on a weekly basis and all of those things. The job that I do today, I got into the company by applying for the job on LinkedIn. By the way, I got the notification 2 a.m. I'm not gonna forget. 2 a.m. on the February. Right? I just woke up to go to the bathroom. And then I just checked my email. And then I saw it. I clicked on it and then I applied. My point is, it works. But oftentimes, we get notified later. Because everyone is competing for the same set of jobs. So you want to make sure that you are at the forefront of it, applying as soon as possible, and making sure that you are applying to as many as possible. Very, very key. And setting up notification is key. Sometimes you need to it's fine for you to also reach out to people to refer you for jobs. So for example, I want to apply to, I see a job in Access Bank, right, that I want to apply to. And then I'm on LinkedIn. Wait, do we all have good LinkedIn profiles? Do you guys do LinkedIn sessions for your students?
No.
Okay, I think you should. Yeah. Definitely. Because I think your LinkedIn profile needs to be banged, like needs to be on point. 100%. You'll be surprised that recruiters will reach out to you. It happens a lot in this country. No, abroad. Recruiters reach out to people. Say, I'm hiring for this job, I think your profile makes sense. And even as students, because they're looking for interns, they reach out to you too as well. Mm-hmm. Right? And it happens all across the world, because you'll be surprised that even some companies abroad, right, because of the kind of solutions that they're offering, right, they're also looking for someone that speaks pidgin English in Nigeria, and they'll be willing to hire someone with that same background. My point is, we're in a global village, right? So your LinkedIn profile needs to be on point. Godwin, I'm looking at you because everyone pointed at you, right? So your LinkedIn profile, so you should have a masterclass on LinkedIn or what your LinkedIn profile should look like, right? And then set up notifications. Go to those companies, engage with content on LinkedIn, because again, it's a game of algorithms, right? The type of things you engage with online means the kind of things that comes your feed. And those things that comes your feed also determine the kind of job that you probably see when you advertise. Mm-hmm. You know, on LinkedIn, they'll say, we think that your profile is 80% match to this job. Yeah. Those are possible. I mean, they're not witches and wizards. They're just some numbers crunching that is determining all of those things. Right? So set those things and continue to encourage people, knowing that it's going to be difficult, right? No doubt. Right? Sometimes it takes months and sometimes it takes weeks. But not giving up is key. And sometimes just praying to God for strength. Because it can be very stressful. Nobody likes to be rejected. Even when you know that the rejection is nothing personal, right? It's still very emotional. So that's why you need God. God, give me the strength to continue to give it a shot. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I think this is a great place to land. Yeah, Baba, thank you so much. You went through so many different parts of the recruiting process. I know that this was really detailed. I will speak on behalf of the folks who are here and people online that this was really informative. We're very grateful that you made the time to be here with us this morning. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Great. We have a little gift for you. Our VC is going to give us a vote of thanks and present that to you.
For online guys.
I mean, all right. I think it's not just the online guys, but for everyone. But again, looking at the folks on the internet as well, right?
On the internet.
Yeah, looking at the folks online. I'm glad that you guys are able to join online, right? Think about that. And how much more you can stay connected to the rest of the world. From your room, from your dining, right? That's the extent to which you can leverage on what this internet has got to offer for you to land yourself with the right opportunity. If you're looking for a job, for you to land yourself the right job. If you're an entrepreneur, for you to land yourself the right grants, to land yourself the right investments, to land yourself the right connection to get you to where you need to get to. The world is big and anything is possible. Like, by the way, I don't believe, impossible is a thing, but I don't believe it is a thing. Because for every single time I fail, I learn from it. I just move on. So I wish you guys all the best, and I wish everyone all the best was in the room. It's just been great, amazing, spending time with all of you. The school, thanks for taking me around, thanks for having me. My darling, wonderful individual person, my personal person, Kemi, for making the connection to as well. It's just been beautiful, and I'm really, really glad that that I'm here to do this. I love to do this. I love to talk to people. So please feel free to add me up on LinkedIn too as well. I will try to respond if people reach out to me. Please don't send me your CV to review. Because I cannot review everybody's CV, right? And I'm not a CV expert, you know. But you know, if you have like one quick question, you know, let me know. I'll try my best to come back to you as soon as possible. But I wish everyone all the best.